Hello Year 5 and welcome to our first maths lesson of the week. We are going to be doing some recapping of fractions today, and that's going to be involving identifying fractions, so seeing them and figuring out what the fractions are. So our word of the day, very similar to division, and hopefully we'll see why as we go through it, is equal, because fractions are equal parts, a bit like when you are dividing it into equal parts. And the fractions symbol is just the division symbol. So this is a division symbol, a fraction. So if we have 3/4, we just put some digits in. So the fraction symbol is just a division symbol with those numbers in. So that's why we have the same word of the day for fractions as we did for some of our division lessons. Okay, so remember, when we see our Roman numerals, try and convert them to Arabic numbers, so normal numbers. So we have our I here, I is worth 1. We have 2 I's, 2 lots of 1 is 2. We have 2 M's, which is 2,000. We have 2 X's, X is worth 10, so that's worth 20. And then we have another I, which is 1. So we have the first and the second, 2021. Time really is flying. Okay, so first activity today, we're laying it out slightly differently, but we're going to do countdown. So the target number is 825. And you can use any of the operations, add, subtract, times, or multiply. And you can use each of these numbers once to try and reach that target, or as near as possible. So pause the video and have a go at that activity. Okay, let's have a look at the answer or method that I found to reach that target. Okay, so our target once again was 825. We've got 100, 3, 4, 10, 7 and 5, and as I've done in the past, I'm just going to tick them off as I use them. So we've got 10 times 3, which is 30, and then we've got 100 minus 30, so we've used 100, and we've used the answer we've got here. So 100 minus 30 is 70, 70 plus 5 is 75, 7 plus 4 is 11, so now we've used all of our numbers, and then we multiply 75 by 11, which is 825. So that is just one way of reaching our target number. There are a few other ways. It'd be interesting to know how you got there if you did. Okay, so these are warm-up questions. We have 4 questions. I would like you to pause the video for a couple of minutes and just have a go at those questions. Right, let's go through these. So the first one says, what fraction is shaded? If I just put the answer up and I'll go through it. So the number on the bottom is the total number of parts that you have. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal parts. That's why the denominator, the number at the bottom, is 5. The number at the top is the number of parts that we've used, or the number of parts that are shaded. So we have 1, 2 here. So 2 parts out of every 5 are shaded. Number 2 is more or less than a third shaded. So look at the answer and then we'll go through it. So it's less. So it might be 1 part out of 3 that's shaded. However, you need to remember that fractions are equal parts, and these 2 parts are much larger. So even though we've got 1 part out of 3 shaded, it's not 1 equal part out of 3. So much more space is left. So it is less than a third. Okay, this question is, what fraction of the circles are not red? So we look for how many red ones we've got. We haven't got any. If we count the total, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to need 6 as our denominator. How many aren't red? All of them. So 6 parts out of 6 are not red. Okay, the next one is, what is half of 72? So that just means 72 divided by 2. So how many 2's in 72? 2 times 36 is 72. So well done if you got those answers. Let's move on to our fractions for today. Okay, so we're looking at 1/4. This is the denominator, the number at the bottom, and this is how many equal of the day parts there are. Remember at the top, this is the numerator. This is how many of the parts we are using. So remember, this is a recap lesson, so we're going over stuff that we've done before. So a lot of you will be familiar with this. This is just to make sure we've got this really important stuff sorted in our heads before we move on to some more complicated stuff, especially as we've missed quite a bit of school in the last year or so. So we have 1/4. Okay, I would like you to just have a little think. Is this split into quarters? Is this shape split into quarters? No, it was not split into quarters because it was not in equal parts. So that is not split into quarters, even though there is 4 parts, because they're not equal. This is split into quarters. So we've got 4 parts, and now one of them is shaded. So 1 out of every 4 parts is shaded. That's 1/4. That's also 1/4. Also 1/4. That's also 1/4. It does no matter which part is shaded. It's 1 part out of 4. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and decide which ones show 1/4. Remember, each part has to be equal, and only 1 out of 4 out of every 4 should be used. So pause the video, have a go at those, and we'll go through them. Right, let's have a look at the first one. So there are 4 parts, they are equal in size, and one of them is shaded. So yes, that is 1/4. Let's look at the second one. No, why do you think that's not 1/4? Because, going back to the word of the day, these are not equal in size. There might be 1 part out of 4 shaded, but they're not equal. So that's not 1/4, that's not the fraction 1/4, because the parts are not equal in size. Let's look at this one. So we have 2 separate bits here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 bits. Let's split those in half. I wonder how we could do that. What we can do, we can move that bit up there and show that there is 1 part out of 4 equal parts that are shaded. Some of you with eager eyes might have noticed as well, if we split those up, quite close to equal, they're not exactly equal, so I've done little squiggles. They were all equal. We then have 2/8. 2/8 is the same as 1/4, if you remember that from your equivalent fractions previously. And let's look at the last one. That is not 1/4 because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal parts and 1 shade. So that would be 1/5. Okay, so just tell yourself what that fraction is. There's 5 equal parts. 2 parts are shaded. 2 out of 5 parts are shaded. So that is 2/5. So we have 3 fractions here. We have 1/7, 1/4, 1/3. They all have a 1 in the numerator position, which means it is a unit fraction. So if you hear the phrase unit fraction, that means that the numerator has to be equal to 1. Okay, let's look at some different fractions. So 1/700th, 1/2, 1/3400th, and 1/19th. They are all unit fractions. Tell yourself why. Because the numerator is 1. So look at some different ones. So we have 6/7ths, 5/4, 2/3. Tell yourself if they're unit fractions or not. They are not, because the numerator is not 1. So they are non-unit fractions. So here are 4 more examples of non-unit fractions. We have 143/700ths, 2 halves, which is equivalent to a whole, 6 3,400ths, 9 19ths. So these are all non-unit fractions. Why? Because the numerator is not 1. So let's recap on unit fractions, not unit fractions. Okay, so this is an opportunity for you to pause the video and have a go at the questions 1 to 4 on the worksheet, or you can carry on listening to me and the video and then do it all at once at the end. It's up to you. Okay, so we want to show where 2/5 is on this number line. So we have both ends of the number line. They're labelled 0 and 1, and we want to find out where 2/5 is. Okay, so there's 1. That's shown you was in fifths. That's 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, because you can see it's split into 5 equal parts. So 1/5, 2/5, which is what we're aiming for, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, or 1/2. Okay, so pause the video and just decide where you think 4/5 would be on this number line, where you think 3/7 would be on this number line, and where you think 1/3 would be on this number line. So pause the video and have a go at those questions. Okay, so 4/5 is going to be there because this is split into 5 equal parts. So we have 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5 there. 3/7, this is split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 equal parts. So we have 1/7, 2/7, 3/7. And here we have, this is 1/3 because it's split into 3 equal parts, and we have one of them there. So 1/3 there. Okay, this isn't very clear, so I'm just going to write it here. So 1/2. This one's a little bit different because in the last ones, the denominator was how many times we had it split up. Let's see how many times it's split up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So it's in sixths. So we have 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, and 5/6. So where on that line do you think is equal to a half? So where are we when we're halfway along that line? What number is halfway to 6? 3/6. So if you split that line up, 3 is half of 6. So 3/6 is equal to 1/2. Okay, so here's some other fractions. We have 6/10, 21/42, 49/100, and 18/37. So I'd like you to decide if any of those are equivalent to a half. So is the number on top half of the number on the bottom? Which one of those? Okay, so 21/42 is the same as a half because 21 times 2 is 42. Okay, just this one, it does say half, but I'm just going to write it up here because it's not very clear because my words of the day mischievously got in the way. Okay, so very similar to the last one we looked at, we want to represent where half is on here. So you need to figure out how many equal parts it's split up into. Where would you place half on there, and then you'll find out the equivalent fraction. Same here. We want 1/2. Just got the number line though, because it goes to 1 whole there and 2 wholes there. So maybe concentrate on how many this whole is split up into, and then what is equivalent to halfway along that line. Here we have 7/7. Where would that be on this line? See how it's split by, and how many 7/7 would be equivalent to. Okay, so 1/2, let's look at the first one first. So 1/2 is going to be there because it's split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have eighths. To get a half, we need to have half of that number on the top. So half of 8 is 4. We go 1, 2, 3, 4 eighths. So 4 eighths is the same as half. Let's look at the next one. So half is going to be there. We can ignore this one for now because that's more than a whole. And we want 1/2 of a whole. Here we split into 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 as our denominator because our whole is split into 4 equal parts. Half of our whole, half of 4 is 2. So we want 2/4, which is the same as a half. So we have 1/4. 2/4. So it's there. The last one, you can work out the equal parts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal parts. I'm looking at fifths. And if we want a whole, it has to be, all of those parts have to be shaded. So it's going to be 5/5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/5. So we could have done that, or we know that if all the parts are shaded, it is equivalent to a whole. So is at that end there. Okay, so we're just looking at picture versions of our fractions here. So they've been represented in pictures. Sorry. So what fraction of our counters, let's call them counters or circles, are green? You need to count the total number and how many of those are green. So we have 3 are green out of 5 in total, which means that 3/5. So we've got 5 things in total, and 3 of those are shaded green, so 3/5. What fraction are blue? So 3/5 are shaded green. 2 out of the 5 are shaded blue, which means that 2/5 must be blue. Okay, let's have a go at these questions. The first one is what fraction are yellow? The second one is what fraction are not red? And the third one is what fraction are white? So you need to count the total number and then how many of those are shaded in the way that you've been asked to look for. So pause the video, have a quick go at those. Right, number 1 is going to be 2/3 because there's 3 counters and 2 of those are shaded out of the total of 3. Number 2 is going to be 5/6 because it says which fraction are not red. And there's 6 in total, which is the denominator. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are not red. So the numerator, how many parts are shaded in for what we're looking for, goes on the top, so 5. What fraction are white? How many do we have in total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our numerator is going to be 8. We're looking for white, so 1, 2, 3. 3 parts of those are shaded white. So we're going to get 3/8. Okay. This one, which I believe our last question to look at before we crack on with the worksheets today, is more or less than 1/4 shaded. So have a look at the number of parts. Think about, are they equal? Think about how you can use that to work out your answers. Let's have a look. So it is more. So there are 4 parts. So these 3, the white ones, are all the same size. However, the red one is larger than the other 3 parts, isn't it? So it has to be less, because if it was just this bit shaded, it would be 1/4, but there's more than 1/4 shaded. Okay, your worksheets have been assigned to you on Teams or Tapestry, so have a go at those, then check if you've got them correct, and then submit your work so we can see how you've done. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more maths and some more fractions.